Good afternoon, everybody. Phil Simons here with Columbia Grain and your post-March planning intentions and quarterly stocks report recap, along with the Thursday edition of the weekly grain market recap. Well, let's go ahead and get right into it, everybody, as we did have the quarterly stocks report out here this morning, along with the March 28th planning intentions report. So again, let's take a look at that. There was quite a few numbers to look at on the day here. But let's go ahead and navigate over to our favorite website, columbiagrain.com. And in the upper right-hand section, if we go to the Producer Solutions tab, that'll get us over to the Producer Solutions link, where we house all of our pertinent data that could be potentially driving the markets. But again, here today, we did have the March planning intentions and the quarterly stocks report out. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to blow this up so you can see it a little bit better here. But to begin, we did have the quarterly stocks. And again, that's just looking at where we were at the beginning of the quarter here. So we do see that for corn, we actually came in at 8.3 billion bushels in the U.S. for the quarterly stocks numbers. When we take a look and compare that this month to where we were last year at this time, it was actually a 13% increase from where we were last year at this time. So actually a fairly sizable increase there. And when we look at soybeans, same kind of scenario, about 1.8 billion bushels, which would be in comparison to last year, about a 9% increase from where we were last year at this time. But the bigger one really coming in the all wheat category, when we compare this month's numbers to last year's numbers, we actually see a 16% increase. So with that, you would think that the markets would actually be on the defensive today, but we actually saw the exact opposite of that in wheat and corn. Soybeans were actually a little bit on the defensive at the settle here, but wheat and corn actually did have a few surprises, on the planning intentions report. But so when we take a look and see the rest of the numbers that were released here today, if we start with corn, the March numbers today, they actually came in at 90 million acres potentially going to be planted in the U.S. this coming year. So when we say, okay, how does 90 million acres actually stack up to where we have been? When you see what the change is from last year we were at 94.6 million. So we actually be down about 5% from last year. The February Ag Outlook Forum had us coming in expecting us to be at 91 million acres. And then also the average trade estimate for today is at 91.7 million acres. So actually, a fairly sizable miss, from the average trade estimate, because realistically, when you take a look at if we're at 90 million acres this year and the average estimate had us at, closer to 92 at 91.7, that's a 1.7 million acre miss. And if we run with the trend line of the USDA initial thoughts of yield at 180 to 181 bushel the acre, that would be close to around 300 million bushels and less production of corn. So again, just something to continue to monitor as we go forward. But again, that's using the USDA's first expected yield of 181 bushel, which would be a monster yield, quite honestly. So the weather market this year, in my opinion, is definitely going to take hold here. As we get into the planting season, as we get deeper into the springtime, and the weather implications are going to be larger this year as we go forward. When we look at soybeans actually did come in pretty close, to the average estimates at 86.5 million acres. Average estimates was 86.53, so right on nose there. The all wheat actually came in at 47.5 million, which comparing that to last year, we were actually down 4% on that. And in winter wheat, we're coming in at 34.1 million, which is down about 7% from last year. And quite honestly, that was actually more of a reduction in soft red acres, down close to 600,000 acres in soft red, which is really where the majority of the loss in acreage is coming from there. Spring wheat was coming in at 11.3 million, actually up 1% from last year. In durum actually coming in at 2 million acres potentially this year, as far as the USDA is concerned, which would actually be about a 19% increase from where we were last year at this time anyway. So again, really just a lot of numbers to kind of digest and go over. That when the dust settled here, the big percentage change, 19% coming in durum. But when you look at the numbers, I mean, it's about 300,000 acres more than where we were last year at that time. So again, just something to continue to monitor. But when we take a look at, historical numbers on yields and potential plantings and things like that, we do see that the 6-year average corn planting in the U.S. is right around 90.2 million acres. So this year coming in potentially at 90 million acres, from the first glance anyway, it's really, quite honestly, not that far off from where we have been over the last 6 years. However, it's just coming from the miss that we saw, today, coming in at 91 million or 92 million acres. And then when you look at what the average production is on corn, it could have a significant impact, on the ending stocks numbers as we continue to move forward. So again, just something to continue to monitor as we go forward. The weather market is going to be, significantly larger, like we talked about here earlier. So just something to continue to keep our eyes on with that. Same thing on the all wheat plantings. Quite honestly, coming in pretty close to the February ag outlook for them. Numbers at 47.5 million, and the 6-year average right at 46 million. So quite honestly, it's not a huge shakeup. It's just that we did see, a fairly sizable reduction in potential soft red acres, which was moving Chicago wheat around, quite honestly, more than anything. But again, when we look at the on white wheat again, when we see what the actual numbers were there, we actually did see an increase of close to about 50,000 acres, and primarily coming in Washington, an increase there. A slight decrease in Michigan, about 3,000 acres. So again, just a little bit of a decrease over there. So really the big driver was a soft red reduction in acres, which was moving Chicago futures around. So again, really the moral of the story continues to be get your orders out there and working, specifically in new crop as we continue to move out the calendar. The weather markets, again, are going to take hold here. And if we don't have any orders out there and working, we're guaranteed that we won't sell anything. So definitely be sure to get a hold of your local managers, your buyers, your merchandisers, get your orders out there and working for anything. If it's a cash contract, if it's a hedge to arrive, if it's a basis contract, if it's an accumulator, whatever it may be, just get your orders out there and working. Other than that, we're going to go ahead and wrap everything up. We do have a long weekend. We will be closed tomorrow for Good Friday. And other than that, have a great weekend. Have a happy Easter. And remember, if you can drink it, don't trade it. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk with you next week.